The starship Aurora drifted silently through the endless expanse of space, its hull glinting faintly in the distant light of a nearby star. Inside, the crew went about their routine duties, their movements smooth and practiced. Life aboard a starship was steady, but it never lacked a quiet rhythm of anticipation. Every day was a careful balance between work, observation, and the occasional, fleeting moments of leisure. Mira Lang, the ship's engineering officer, had always found a certain comfort in the hum of the engines. The vibration beneath her feet, the soft whine of machinery, the gentle flicker of lights along the control panels. These things made her feel connected to the ship in a way that words could hardly describe. That morning, however, she felt something was off. She had just finished checking the auxiliary power lines near the observation deck when she noticed it. At first, she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. There, in the dim morning light, were footprints, human footprints. They were clear, deep enough to suggest someone had walked there. But they were strange. They ended abruptly, right at the edge of the deck. It was as if whoever had walked across the metal floor had simply vanished into nothing. Mira frowned. She glanced around the empty deck, her boots making soft thuds on the metallic floor. The ship was quiet. Too quiet. She turned sharply toward the doorway, half expecting someone to be standing there, waiting to explain what she was seeing. But the corridor beyond was empty, the hum of the ship unchanged, the fluorescent lights flickering in their usual rhythm. Her mind raced. No one had reported leaving the deck. No one had even left the ship. And yet these footprints were real. She knelt down, running a gloved finger along the edge of the first mark. The metal beneath was smooth and undisturbed, except where the prints pressed lightly into the surface. There was no sign of a struggle, no scuff marks indicating a fall or a sudden disappearance. "Captain," she said into her comm, her voice steady despite the unease curling in her stomach. "You need to see this. Now." Within minutes, Captain Elias Ardan arrived. He was a tall man with a calm presence, someone who rarely showed surprise, yet when he stepped onto the deck and saw the footprints, his brow furrowed. "I see them," he said quietly, kneeling beside Mira. He studied the marks carefully. "And you're telling me they end here?" Mira nodded, pointing at the edge of the deck. "Exactly there. It's like whoever made them just vanished." Elias stood, pacing slowly along the row of prints. "No one left the ship. Airlock logs are clear. Sensors didn't pick up any unusual activity outside the hull. Yet something walked here. This is unusual." He ran a hand through his short, dark hair, a rare gesture of uncertainty. The rest of the crew gathered, drawn by the news. Lieutenant Jonas, the ship's science officer, examined the prints with a scanner. "They're human," he said, frowning at the readings. "But the molecular composition of the floor where the prints end, it's like the atoms were displaced and then instantly restored. There's no logical explanation for this." A ripple of tension ran through the group. Whispered speculations filled the air. "Maybe it's a hallucination?" someone suggested. "Not possible," Mira replied. "I've touched them. They're real. Look for yourselves." The footprints seemed to invite a sense of unease that no one could shake. They were ordinary, yet extraordinary in their impossibility. The crew split into teams, scanning the deck, the hallways, and nearby storage areas. But there was no trace of anyone, no footprints leading to or from the rest of the ship. Nothing that could explain their sudden appearance. The ship's AI, known simply as Lumen, reported subtle energy fluctuations along the deck where the prints ended. "Anomaly detected," it said in its calm, mechanical voice. "Energy readings suggest a transient matter-state transition. Object or entity presence cannot be confirmed." Elias glanced at the crew, his expression steady but grave. "We're dealing with something we don't understand. I want sensors deployed along the entire deck, along the hull. Mira, work with Jonas to see if we can track the source of these prints. I don't care what it takes, we find answers." For hours, the crew worked methodically. They combed through every corridor, every engine room, and every observation deck. The ship was a labyrinth of metal and light, yet it felt suddenly smaller, as if the presence behind the prints made even the vast corridors feel confined. Mira and Jonas returned to the spot where the footprints had first appeared, running detailed scans and analyzing the energy readings. "It's like they're pointing us somewhere," Jonas said, voice low, "but not a direction we can go. Just a location in space, maybe. Or maybe not even in space," Mira replied. "Maybe it's something outside of time or dimension. Lumen's readings don't match any known particle or energy signature." Jonas shivered. "You're suggesting—" "What? That someone or something stepped here and then didn't exist anymore?" Mira said nothing, but her silence carried the weight of agreement. As night fell aboard the Aurora, tension grew. Crew members reported hearing faint noises, whispers, soft steps. The feeling of being watched. Lights flickered without cause, and instruments fluctuated inexplicably. Even Lumen, normally calm and predictable, emitted small static noises as it processed anomalous data. Elias called a meeting in the main control room. The crew gathered around. The lights dimmed to a soft glow to ease their nerves. "We are facing something unknown," he said. "I will not lie, this is unusual, and it is unnerving. But we are humans. We have faced the unknown before. We will face it now. Together. No panic. No rash actions. We work, we observe, and we find the truth." Mira watched him speak and felt a measure of reassurance, yet unease still gnawed at her. The footprints seemed alive in a way she could not explain. She ran her hands along the edge of the deck again, imagining the invisible steps that had crossed the metal floor. Hours passed. The ship moved silently through the void, sensors scanning, lights flickering, and the crew taking turns observing the deck. And then, just as the first hints of the next day appeared on the starboard horizon, something happened. A new set of footprints appeared. They were not in the same place as before. They were on the opposite side of the deck, leading from a wall where no door existed. Once again, the trail ended abruptly, stopping at the edge of the ship. Mira and Jonas rushed to analyze them. The energy readings were stronger this time, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. "This isn't random," Jonas said, his voice tight. "It's intentional. Someone, or something, is trying to communicate or guide us." Elias joined them, studying the prints. "Then we follow. Carefully. We stay alert. And we stay together. No one goes alone." The crew organized into teams, sensors sweeping the ship, following the trail of impossible footprints. With each step, the air seemed to grow heavier, the silence of space pressing in against the hull. Every corridor held potential danger, but also a strange sense of curiosity. Mira's mind raced with questions. Who or what could step on a ship and vanish? Why now? Why here? She felt a shiver of fear, but it was matched by excitement. The Aurora had always explored the unknown, but now the unknown was inside their own ship. As the hours passed, more footprints appeared, each stopping at impossible edges, each pulsing faintly with energy. The crew began to notice patterns, geometrical shapes, subtle arcs, repeated sequences. Mira and Jonas worked feverishly to decode them, their fingers flying over touch panels, their faces lit by the soft glow of the screens. "This is a language," Mira whispered. "Not words, but patterns. The entity or person behind this is leaving a message." Jonas nodded, eyes wide. "And it's waiting for us to understand it." By the end of the first day, the crew of the Aurora realized one undeniable truth. They were not alone. Something intelligent had crossed their ship. Something beyond human comprehension, leaving footprints that defied explanation. And whatever it was patient, watching, and perhaps even waiting. As Mira stood at the edge of the deck, staring at the latest set of prints, she felt the pull of the unknown. She did not know what lay beyond that invisible threshold, but she knew one thing clearly. Their journey had only just begun. The starship drifted on, carrying its crew into the vast, uncharted void, and the footprints remained, silent and mysterious, marking the beginning of a story that would test the limits of human courage, curiosity, and imagination. The day after the mysterious footprints first appeared, the crew of the Aurora was restless. Sleep had been fitful for many. Dreams haunted by impossible images of vanishing figures and glowing trails along the ship's deck. Even those who claimed not to believe in anything unusual felt a prickling sense of unease. The footprints were no longer just anomalies. They had become questions without answers, riddles that demanded attention. Mira Lang and Lieutenant Jonas worked tirelessly in the engineering bay, attempting to understand the strange energy readings that had accompanied each footprint. They pored over data streams, compared readings from the first appearance to the new sets, and ran simulations. Yet every attempt at explanation seemed to fail. The energy patterns were unlike anything known to human science. They did not behave according to the laws of physics, and yet they left real traces, leaving Mira's mind spinning. "These readings," Jonas muttered, tapping on the display. "They aren't just energy. They're aware of us. Look at the fluctuations. Every time we approach, the readings change. Every time we step back, they shift again." Mira frowned, her brow furrowed. "Are you saying it's intelligent?" Jonas nodded slowly, almost reluctantly. "It has to be. Nothing else could interact with our presence like this. It's not random, and it's not natural. Whoever, or whatever, is leaving these prints, it knows we're watching." Their discussion was interrupted by the AI's calm voice. "Captain Ardan. New footprints detected. Location: secondary observation deck. Ending coordinates: hull edge, port side. Energy readings elevated beyond previous levels. Potential interactive anomaly confirmed." Elias's voice cut through the ship's quiet, steady yet commanding. "All teams, prepare for investigation. Sensors active. Cameras online. Stay in pairs. No one goes alone." The crew moved cautiously, the familiar corridors of the Aurora feeling suddenly alien. Lights flickered intermittently, creating brief shadows that seemed to stretch unnaturally along the walls. Every footstep echoed with a hollow resonance, making even the smallest movements feel amplified. Mira walked beside Jonas, her eyes scanning the deck for the next trace. Her hands never far from her scanner. When they arrived at the secondary observation deck, the new footprints were even stranger than the first set. They traced across the metal floor, forming an intricate pattern that resembled a series of concentric circles. Each step was precise, deliberate, as if the maker of the prints had been performing a ritual rather than simply walking. And once again, they ended abruptly at the edge of the deck, hovering over empty space. Mira crouched, her fingers hovering over the marks. "It's trying to tell us something," she whispered. "Not words, not speech, but a message. The pattern is too precise to be random." Jonas scanned the energy field around the prints, frowning. "It's as if it's waiting for a response. Watch this." He tapped on the control panel, projecting a small holographic replica of the footprint pattern into the air. Almost immediately, the holographic lights pulsed, and a faint hum resonated through the deck. Mira's hair stood on end. The anomaly was interacting with them. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the ship, the other crew members were experiencing similar phenomena. Lieutenant Kara, assigned to security, reported flickering lights in the corridors and soft, whispering sounds that seemed to come from nowhere. One of the engineers claimed to have felt a hand brush against his shoulder, though he had been alone in the maintenance bay. Even Captain Elias admitted to a fleeting sensation of being watched while walking between the decks. Elias convened a meeting in the main control room, the tension in the air thick enough to be felt. The crew gathered, their faces reflecting a mix of curiosity, fear, and determination. "We are encountering something beyond our understanding," Elias began. "But we are humans. We do not panic. We observe. We study. And we act carefully. No reckless moves. No solo expeditions. We follow the evidence. We study. We amend. We study. We study. We follow the evidence. Mira spoke up. Her voice steady but tinged with urgency. The entity, or whatever it is trying to communicate. The footprints, the energy fluctuations, they are a language. We have to figure out how to respond. Ignoring it might make things worse. Jonas nodded in agreement. I think it wants interaction. Every time we scan, every time we observe, it reacts. It's learning about us, and in turn, it wants us to understand it. Elias considered this. Then, we proceed carefully. We observe, we document, and we prepare for controlled interaction. All teams report anomalies immediately. We stay alert. Hours passed as the crew worked to analyze the patterns and the energy readings. Mira and Jonas spent long stretches in the observation deck, projecting holographic simulations of the footprints, trying different sequences and movements to see if the anomaly would respond. Each pulse of light, each shift in energy, seemed almost like acknowledgement. At one point, a new series of prints appeared, this time on the central command deck. They were larger, almost twice the size of a human footprint, and they traced a path that looped around several stations before abruptly ending in midair, just above the edge of the deck. Sensors confirmed that no air currents, no hidden structures, and no mechanical devices could have caused this. The prints were real, and yet impossible. The crew watched in awe and caution. It's as if it's testing us, Jonas said. Seeing how we react, what we notice. It's intelligent, curious. Even, Mira felt a strange sense of connection. A thread of understanding forming despite the impossibility of the situation. We need to engage, she said softly. We can't just stand by. If it's trying to teach us something or warn us, we need to respond. Elias nodded. Then we do it carefully. Pairs only. Sensors active. Cameras on. We'll try interaction. But no one takes unnecessary risks. The plan was set. Using holographic projections, lights, and patterned movements. The crew attempted to mirror the entity's footprint patterns. At first, nothing happened. But gradually, the lights pulsed in response. The hum grew stronger, vibrating gently through the deck as if acknowledging their efforts. Mira felt a thrill of excitement, tempered by caution. This was no longer a mystery. They were in the first stages of contact. The aurora itself seemed to respond. Energy readings stabilized in some areas, while in others, the pulses became rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Sensors indicated that the anomaly was observing multiple crew members at once, adapting to their patterns of movement, their attention, even their emotions. It was learning, but it was also teaching. As night fell again, the crew began to notice other phenomena. Shadows seemed to move independently of light sources. Whispers carried meaning but no words, and soft vibrations traveled through the metal floors as if the ship itself were alive. Crew members reported feeling presence even in empty corridors, an awareness that followed them wherever they went. Elias gathered the senior officers in the control room. We are dealing with something beyond conventional understanding, he said. But it is not hostile. At least, not yet. Our task is to learn, observe, and communicate. Caution, vigilance, and courage are our tools. Mira studied the holographic projections one last time before leaving the observation deck. The footprints glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the anomaly's energy signature. She felt a mixture of fear, awe, and hope. For the first time, it seemed like they were not just observers. They were participants in a dialogue with something beyond comprehension. Suddenly, the sensors detected a change. A faint, luminous outline appeared near the edge of the ship, outside the hull. It shimmered, almost invisible, as if blending with the void of space. Mira froze, her breath catching. Jonas joined her, eyes wide. It's There, he whispered. The outline shifted, forming shapes that resembled human movement, stepping across empty space, yet leaving no visible trace. The energy readings spiked, and the hum of the anomaly intensified. The footprints on the deck pulsed in response, as if reacting to the presence outside. Elias's voice came through the comm, steady but tense. All teams, remain calm. Observe, document, and stay alert. No one approaches the hull without full protective measures. Mira felt a thrill of fear and excitement. They were seeing it now, the entity that had left the impossible footprints, the intelligence that had been watching, teaching, and learning. And for the first time, it seemed to acknowledge them. The crew spent the next hours observing, documenting, and interacting in subtle ways. They mirrored movements, projected patterns of light, and used the ship's sensors to send gentle pulses. Each attempt was met with a response, slight at first, then more pronounced, as if the entity were communicating back in its own strange, silent language. By the end of the second day, a pattern began to emerge. The entity's movements outside the hull corresponded to specific sequences of footprints inside the ship. It was forming a language of motion, teaching them, guiding them, waiting for a response. Mira and Jonas studied the sequences late into the night. Exhausted, they realized that understanding the patterns might reveal the entity's intentions. Was it curious? Friendly? Warning them of danger? The possibilities were endless, and the unknown stretched infinitely before them, like the void of space itself. As Mira finally rested against the wall, she gazed at the glowing footprints. They seemed to pulse softly, like a heartbeat, marking the presence of something alive, intelligent, and extraordinary. The crew of the Aurora had taken the first steps in a dialogue with the unknown. And though they did not yet understand it fully, one truth was undeniable. Humanity's courage, curiosity, and resilience would be tested, and their responses could change the course of their journey forever. The ship drifted on through the silent, infinite dark, carrying its crew and the impossible footprints into a future filled with wonder, danger, and discovery. And somewhere outside, the entity watched, learned, and waited. The Aurora drifted silently through the void, its hull gleaming faintly under distant starlight. Inside, the atmosphere was tense yet filled with a strange, electric anticipation. The crew had been on high alert since the appearance of the footprints, which now seemed to communicate through patterns, pulsing energy, and subtle interactions. Every day, the strange entity outside the ship became more visible, more present, yet still impossible to fully understand. Mira Lang stood on the observation deck, scanning the hull for any signs of change. The faint outline of the entity shimmered against the black of space, twisting and folding in ways no human eye could fully comprehend. Jonas joined her, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. "It's more active today," he said softly, pointing to the undulating shape. "It's reacting to us, more than ever before." Mira's fingers hovered over her scanner. "We've been trying to understand its patterns for days. Maybe now it's ready to communicate more directly. Or maybe it's testing us." Captain Elias's voice came over the comm system, steady and commanding. "All teams, maintain positions. No one approaches the hull unprotected. Observe, document, and report. We're entering uncharted territory." The senior officers gathered in the control room, reviewing the latest data. Energy readings had intensified, the pulsing rhythm of the footprints now syncing almost perfectly with the undulations of the entity outside. It was clear the anomaly had intelligence, awareness, and possibly even curiosity about the humans aboard. Lieutenant Kara spoke up. "It's responding to us. Every time we mirror the footprint patterns, the energy spikes. Every time we hesitate, it fades slightly. It's like it wants interaction." Elias nodded. "Then, we interact. Carefully. But no sudden movements. No risks. We proceed as a team." The plan was set. The crew would attempt a controlled interaction using the holographic footprint patterns, combined with light sequences and gentle energy pulses. Mira and Jonas prepared the system, projecting the glowing footprint sequences into the center of the observation deck. The lights pulsed in rhythm, and the holographic footprints shimmered, almost as if alive. The entity outside the ship seemed to respond immediately. Its form shifted, stretching and folding, creating shapes that mirrored the projected patterns. A faint hum resonated through the deck, vibrating the metal floor beneath their feet. Mira felt a thrill run through her. This was the first time they had a clear, tangible interaction. Suddenly, the entity's outline moved closer to the hull, pausing just beyond the reinforced glass of the observation deck. It seemed to observe, to study the crew with deliberate attention. The lights on the holographic projections flickered in response, and the energy readings spiked higher than ever before. Jonas whispered, "It's trying to communicate." Directly. Mira's eyes widened. "We need to respond." She tapped on the control panel, adjusting the holographic patterns to mimic the entity's movements as closely as possible. The footprints on the deck pulsed in perfect sync, and the energy vibrations became almost tangible, like a heartbeat filling the room. Elsewhere on the ship, crew members reported more unusual phenomena. In the corridors, shadows moved independently, stretching and folding in impossible directions. Soft whispers carried meaning without words, brushing against the minds of those who listened. Even the ship's AI, Lumen, emitted a low, static hum, as if processing an entirely new form of intelligence. Elias monitored the situation from the control room. "Steady," he said. "Observe. Do not panic. This entity is intelligent, and it is curious." We continue our response carefully. As the hours passed, the entity began to display patterns more clearly. Its movements traced shapes that suggested a form of writing or symbolic communication. Mira and Jonas worked feverishly, projecting new holographic sequences in an attempt to match the shapes and respond appropriately. Every successful match caused the entity's outline to glow brighter and pulse rhythmically. The tension aboard the ship was palpable. Every crew member felt the presence of the entity as a constant weight, a living awareness that observed their every movement. Yet alongside the fear was awe, a sense that they were participating in something extraordinary, an encounter that defied explanation and challenged the limits of human understanding. Then, as the ship drifted near a faint cluster of distant stars, the entity did something unprecedented. Its outline solidified slightly, forming shapes that resembled human features. A head, arms, even fingers, but shimmering and translucent, like glass. The crew gasped. This was no longer an invisible or abstract presence. They were seeing an intelligent, sentient form, observing them from beyond the hull. Mira's heart pounded. "It's like it's learning from us, adapting, trying to understand us." Jonas nodded. "And maybe it's letting us understand it too. Look at how the footprints respond. Every pulse is synchronized." Captain Elias made a careful decision. "We are going to extend our interaction. Prepare the external tether system. We will send a drone outside to observe more closely. But no direct human contact yet. Safety first." The crew moved with precision, deploying the drone along a tether while monitoring energy fluctuations. As it approached the entity, the outline shifted again, forming patterns that the crew could now clearly recognize as intentional sequences of steps, arcs, and pulses that corresponded directly with the holographic footprints inside. It was a dialogue, a conversation without words, without sound, carried out through movement, energy, and light. Mira felt a sense of wonder she had never known. The entity was communicating, teaching, and learning all at once. Suddenly, the entity's shape shifted more dramatically. It moved toward the ship's hull, forming a semi-visible bridge that seemed to extend beyond the metal surface. Hovering in space as if suspended by invisible threads, the energy readings spiked dangerously high, and alarms began to sound in the control room. Elias's voice was calm but urgent. "All teams, stand by. No one moves too close. Observe and record only. The crew watched in awe as the entity's outline folded and unfolded, its form more defined than ever. The holographic footprints pulsed faster, in sync with the entity's motions. Mira realized with a thrill that they were witnessing something entirely new, a form of intelligence that was alive, aware, and capable of interaction beyond human comprehension. Jonas whispered, "It's inviting us to understand it, to reach out." Mira's fingers hovered over the controls. "But how? We can't risk sending anyone out there yet." Suddenly, a smaller outline appeared next to the larger form. It was humanoid, but delicate and faint, stepping carefully across the void, mirroring the footprints on the deck with perfect precision. The energy readings indicated that this smaller figure was less stable, more connected to the patterns inside the ship than the larger entity. This might be the key," Mira said, eyes wide. "It's showing us a guide, a way to interact safely." Elias's voice cut through the excitement. "Prepare a controlled sequence of holographic patterns. We match its steps exactly. We do not rush. We do not panic." The crew followed his instructions with precision, projecting the sequence into the observation deck. As the patterns aligned with the smaller figure outside, the energy pulses became steady, almost gentle. The entity seemed to respond positively, its outline glowing softly, pulsing in a rhythm that matched the ship's own systems. Mira felt a thrill of hope. They were communicating, slowly, carefully, without words, without touch, yet fully aware of one another. The impossible footprints had led them to this moment of first direct contact with a being beyond human understanding. Hours passed as the crew refined their interaction. Every movement, every pulse, every projected pattern was met with a response. The entity outside the hull moved with intelligence, curiosity, and care, as if testing the humans, learning from them, and teaching them in return. Then, in a moment that would remain etched in memory, the smaller figure approached the hull directly in front of the observation deck. It hovered, shimmering, and extended a shape resembling a hand or a gesture of invitation. The energy readings stabilized, glowing gently. Mira and Jonas exchanged a look. "It's inviting us," Jonas whispered. "It wants contact. But safely. Carefully." Captain Elias made his decision. "We prepare for limited interaction. We stay tethered. We do not risk the crew. We observe and respond." This is humanity's first step in understanding a truly alien intelligence. The drone, now equipped with sensors and holographic projection capabilities, extended toward the figure. As it hovered in front, the entity's smaller form reached out, touching the invisible surface with delicate, glowing tendrils. The holographic patterns inside the deck pulsed in response, and the crew realized with awe that the dialogue had reached a new level of clarity. The entity was no longer merely a mystery, it was a participant in a conversation. And through its gestures, movements, and energy pulses, it was teaching the humans aboard the Aurora that intelligence, curiosity, and courage could bridge even the vastest divides between species. Mira watched, her breath caught in her throat. For the first time, the impossible seemed possible. They were not just observers, they were part of an exchange, a meeting of minds that transcended words, space, and even the known laws of physics. As the entity's smaller form finally receded slightly, the larger outline remained, glowing faintly against the void. The crew of the Aurora understood one undeniable truth. Humanity's courage, patience, and willingness to engage with the unknown had opened the door to a new kind of understanding. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, they felt a connection with something truly extraordinary. The starship drifted on, carrying its crew and the impossible footprints into the dark, infinite void of space. And outside, the entity watched, learned, and waited, shimmering with intelligence and curiosity, ready to reveal more of the universe to those who dared to reach out. The Aurora glided silently through the endless darkness of space. Its crew moved with a quiet energy, alert and watchful, yet filled with anticipation. They had spent days following impossible footprints, decoding pulsing energy patterns and interacting with the strange entity outside the ship. Each encounter had been more remarkable than the last, and now the crew stood on the threshold of something extraordinary, an understanding that could change everything they knew about life in the universe. Mira Lang stood at the observation deck, her eyes fixed on the shimmering outline of the entity beyond the hull. Its smaller form hovered close, moving gracefully as if it had learned the rhythm of human presence. The larger form loomed faintly in the distance, its movements deliberate and intelligent. Mira felt both awe and a sense of responsibility. They were interacting with a being beyond comprehension, yet the creature seemed to trust them enough to continue this dialogue. Jonas joined her, scanning the energy readings. "It's stable now," he said softly. "The fluctuations are synchronized with our holographic projections. Whatever it's doing, it's allowing us to engage on its terms." Mira nodded, her hands hovering over the control panel. "We need to keep this controlled. One wrong move, and we could lose the connection. Or worse, put the ship at risk." Captain Elias's voice came over the calm and commanding. "All teams, maintain positions. We proceed with caution. Today, we attempt our most direct interaction yet. We observe, respond, and learn. Humanity's courage and patience will guide us." The crew carefully prepared the external tether system. A small drone, equipped with sensors and holographic projection capabilities, was ready to move closer to the entity. Mira and Jonas worked side by side, projecting complex patterns of light and footprints onto the observation deck floor. Each pulse was synchronized, each step precise, designed to communicate understanding, respect, and curiosity. When the drone extended toward the smaller entity, its outline shimmered brightly, almost as if recognizing the effort. The creature's delicate form mirrored the holographic patterns perfectly, creating a synchronized dance of light and energy between human and alien intelligence. The hum of the entity, once faint and distant, now vibrated through the entire ship like a heartbeat, steady and reassuring. Mira felt a thrill of excitement. "It's responding. Every movement we make, it reflects. This is communication." Jonas nodded, eyes wide. "And it's teaching us. Look at the sequence, it's showing us something new. Instructions, maybe. A pattern we didn't notice before." The footprints on the deck pulsed in harmony with the energy outside, forming intricate arcs, spirals, and waves. The crew realized they were being guided, shown a path, or perhaps a form of understanding that went beyond language. The entity's intelligence was vast, yet patient. It allowed the humans to learn at their own pace, never forcing, never threatening, only observing and responding. Captain Elias made the decision. "We proceed with a controlled approach. Mira, Jonas, you and the drone team will extend interaction. All others observe and monitor systems. No one risks themselves unnecessarily." Mira took a deep breath, her heart racing. The drone glided smoothly toward the entity, the tether unspooling carefully. As it moved closer, the smaller form extended its glowing appendages, touching the invisible boundary of the hull in a gesture that seemed almost human, delicate, tentative, and full of intention. The holographic footprints pulsed brighter, responding instantly. Jonas monitored the readings. "It's perfect. The energy is stabilizing. It's letting us connect safely. And it's sharing something." Mira's fingers danced over the controls, projecting sequences that mirrored the entity's movements. Slowly, a pattern emerged, a sequence of lights and steps that, when interpreted through the holographic system, revealed complex information about energy manipulation, spatial navigation, and advanced propulsion concepts. The entity was offering knowledge, not in words, but through movement, energy, and pattern, a gift of understanding beyond human experience. The crew watched in awe. This was a moment they had never imagined. First contact with an intelligence not only aware of them, but willing to share the secrets of the cosmos. Mira felt tears prick her eyes as she realized the magnitude of what they were witnessing. Humanity had been chosen, in a sense, to learn, to grow, and to reach beyond the limits of their current knowledge. But the entity's intentions were not fully clear. The larger form hovered at a distance, observing carefully, its presence a constant reminder of the vast intelligence they were dealing with. It pulsed in response to every interaction, as if evaluating the human's patience, courage, and comprehension. Captain Elias spoke calmly. We continue carefully. Observe, interact, and respect its boundaries. This is a moment of learning, not conquest. Hours passed as the crew refined their communication. The smaller form outside moved with increasing clarity, guiding the drone and the holographic projections through complex sequences. Mira and Jonas translated the patterns into energy schematics, propulsion models, and navigational theories that exceeded any human technology. It was as if the entity had opened a window into a higher understanding, offering insight that would take generations to fully comprehend. Then, a breakthrough occurred. The smaller form moved toward the hull, pausing just beyond the reinforced glass. It extended a glowing shape almost like a hand toward the observation deck. The holographic footprints pulsed in perfect sync, and the energy readings stabilized at maximum clarity. The entity was inviting them to step forward, to engage in a controlled, direct interaction. Mira turned to Elias. Captain, it's inviting us, not to touch it physically, but to interact directly through the holographic system and the drone. It wants us to respond. Elias nodded. We proceed. Carefully, but boldly. Humanity has come this far. We do not retreat now. The crew followed his instructions with precision. Mira and Jonas projected the final sequences of footprints, light, and energy patterns. The drone extended fully into the entity's reach, its sensors recording every pulse, every reflection of light. The smaller form responded, aligning perfectly with the projected patterns, pulsing and glowing in a synchronized rhythm that was almost musical. For a long, silent moment, the ship held its breath. The entity hovered close, its movements deliberate, intelligent, and full of intent. Then, slowly, a new sequence emerged, one that suggested a deeper understanding, a teaching of concepts that were entirely alien, yet beautiful in their logic. Mira realized with awe that they were being shown advanced forms of energy manipulation, ways to harness power efficiently, navigate space safely, and even influence gravitational fields. Jonas whispered, It's giving us knowledge, a gift. It trusts us to understand and use it wisely. Mira nodded, her eyes shining. It's sharing its understanding of the universe with humans. The crew worked tirelessly, following the patterns, projecting sequences, and recording every detail. Each interaction deepened their connection with the entity, revealing more about its intelligence, its intentions, and its awareness of the human's courage and curiosity. It became clear that this was not merely observation, it was a form of mentorship, a shared learning experience between species separated by space and physics, but connected by intelligence and curiosity. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the smaller form slowly retreated, hovering near the larger outline. The entity pulsed once more, a gesture of acknowledgement and completion. The footprints on the deck faded, leaving only faint traces of energy that reminded the crew of the incredible journey they had undertaken. Captain Elias addressed the crew, his voice steady and full of pride. We have done something remarkable. We have interacted with an intelligence far beyond our own, learned from it, and respected its presence. Humanity's courage, patience, and curiosity have opened a door to understanding the universe in ways we could not have imagined. Mira felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The impossible footprints that had first appeared on the deck were no longer a mystery. They were the beginning of a conversation, a bridge between humans and an intelligence far greater than themselves. They had taken the first steps toward understanding, and the lessons they had learned would guide humanity for generations. The Aurora drifted on through the quiet darkness, carrying its crew and the extraordinary knowledge they had gained. Outside, the entity remained, shimmering and aware, watching the humans with curiosity and respect. It had shared a gift, a seed of understanding, and in doing so had recognized the potential of humanity to grow, explore, and reach for the stars with courage and wisdom. Mira stood once more at the observation deck, looking out into the vast expanse of space. The footprints were gone, but their presence lingered in memory and understanding. Humanity had faced the unknown, engaged with it, and emerged wiser. The Aurora and its crew had taken the first steps in a dialogue that would continue. A story of curiosity, courage, and the endless possibilities of the universe. The stars stretched endlessly before them, bright points of light in the infinite darkness. And for the first time, the humans of the Aurora understood that they were not alone. Not in the vastness of space, and not in the pursuit of knowledge. Somewhere beyond, an intelligence had recognized them, tested them, and shared its wisdom. The universe was no longer entirely unknown. It was a place of wonder, connection, and potential, waiting for humanity to rise to the challenge. And in that quiet, endless expanse, the Aurora and its crew sailed onward, carrying with them the lessons of the impossible footprints and the intelligence that had stepped across their path, leaving a mark on human history, imagination, and the very heart of exploration.